following program is a production of Ho'ike Kauai Community Media.
Aloha and welcome to Talkin Trash. I'm Max Richardson.
And I'm Allison Fraley. And today we have a special guest, our recycling coordinator, Andy Boyd.
Hi there.
Andy, thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Good to see you.
I've only been able to watch so far.
Well, you're in the. You actually have been in every episode so far. You're in the intro.
Oh.
Sorting through plastics.
Excellent. I feel better now.
Yeah. All right. So, Andy, tell us a little bit about what we're looking at over here.
Well, this is our Lihue Kauai Recycle site. It's run by Garden Aisle Disposal, and we thank the mall for allowing us to use this space. What we have here are bins for all the recyclables that we can collect and process and recycle on Kauai. And so those items would be, corrugated cardboard, glass bottles and jars, mixed paper, which encompasses quite a bit of different types of paper, aluminum cans, steel cans, foils. And then we also have our plastics, and there has to be a number 1 or number 2 bottle and jar. That's very important because even though it may have a number 1 or 2 on it, if it's not a bottle and jar, it can't be recycled because it has different chemical components to it than the bottles and jars do. And then I think I covered all of the items we take there. Did I miss anything, Allison?
No.
All right,
that
perfect.
was it. Thanks, Andy.
Right.
You're welcome.
So, Andy, how did you become the recycling coordinator for the County of Kaua?
I may wave my magic recycling wand. I know, I've been coming here for many years. I have quite a lot of animosity towards Allison for not hiring me back in 2007 when I initially applied for the job, but I stuck to it. And I've been vacationing here for 20 plus years and just always wanted the opportunity to move over here. And so the job became available and I'm like, let's make a go of it.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. So what does the job entail? I mean, from the job title, we can make an educated guess, but specifically.
Right. I mean, the main part of my job is overseeing all the different contracts of folks that do all the different recycling programs. So I oversee the Garden Island disposal contract for commercial recycling, as well as the residential type of recycling, which is this program is specifically for residents.
Okay.
If you're a commercial operator, you can bring those materials down to Garden Aisle Disposal directly. They have hours of operation from 7 to 2 to drop the materials off there, and they do have a lunch hour, but I can't remember exactly what that is off the top of my head.
Okay.
I also oversee the metals contract, which is Puhi Metals or Resource Recovery Solutions over in Puhi. So they take the cars and they take the appliances and all different types of scrap metal. And then we also have contracts for green waste. So that would be, we accept green waste at all the transfer stations and the Kekaha landfill. So, and that's for residents as well. So we manage that contract. We have different contractors that do each of the sites. So we've got Heart and Soul up in Maloa'a, and then we have K&L, Kauai Nursery and Landscaping. They take Hanapepe's materials, and then we also have Shredco, which is down in the Kekaha area, and they take the materials from the landfill. Let's see, there's also household hazardous waste. So we have that coming up here real soon, the 18th and the 19th. I'm not sure if
Of October. I'm
not sure if this will be airing before then, but if it does, it'll be a great advertisement. And if it doesn't, it'll be a great reminder that we have this program and to come to the next one. Unfortunately, we only can do that 2 times a year. So this one's coming up. It's on the weekend of the 18th and the 19th, and they're located at the Kauai Base Yard, the Hanapepe Base Yard, the Kauai Resource Center, and up in Nanaho. They happen on different days, so you might want to check the website, kauai.gov/HHW, and you can find out the actual dates for each location.
HHW, and that sounds for household hazardous waste, right?
That is correct.
So if you forget the letters, household hazardous waste, HHW. And note to myself when I'm editing this to write down when that is, because I have that jug of antifreeze that's been sitting in my shed for God knows how long because I always forget to bring it to the HHW. So
there's more programs. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, no,
I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah,
there's a lot.
We got more. So we have the reuse program that runs out of the Kauai Resource Center. So people can bring thrift store type items that are in good shape and can be reused, and we contract with Goodwill for that currently on that program. And then we also have Oh, we also have grants that we do within our department to try and bolster or try and help folks that have ideas. So like Compost Kauai has been one of our recipients, to help get their program up and running. We've been working with Ho'omalo Kekai, which they work on plastic upcycling. And we have another grant opportunity coming up here very shortly. And then also do outreach to schools or any type of civic organization. So we do tabling events and things like that, and you can do presentations anywhere.
Home composting.
Yeah, we have the compost program. So if you ever seen those Darth Vader helmet-looking backyard composters, that's a very popular program. We probably give out 2 or 3 to 4 of those a week. So and that's free to residents. You just schedule an appointment. Just call me at 241-4838, and we'll get that taken care of. 241-4838. And
then battery recycling we have at the Kauai Resource Center. So those are for your household batteries, NiCad batteries.
Yeah, also the fluorescent tubes and fluorescent, the small, the spiral light bulbs.
Yeah.
So we got those. Geez, what am I missing? I'm sure I'm missing something.
No, I think well, of course, we do tire recycling at the transfer stations.
Motor oil recycling.
Motor oil and propane tanks.
My motor oil.
Propane tanks as well at the transfer stations. So all of that stuff. So Andy's in charge of all those programs.
That sounds like quite a lot.
Yeah.
That's a plenty.
Yeah.
And then
that sounds like enough to keep a guy busy.
Not only just overseeing, but administering them. There's like office work to do around those programs.
Yeah, you get all the invoices, you get all the information, and keep track and spreadsheets of all the numbers. Because at the end of the year, we always do a diversion, try and figure out how much material we're able to divert from our landfill.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important to know that information. So it's a lot of record keeping as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And so do you have like a big staff, or do you have just you and an assistant, or is it like just you?
It's kind of like me, and then it's Allison and Keola, and I'm like, what do I do?
And then,
and I mean, we also have the DB, the deposit beverage container program. So that's the high five.
Yeah.
So I oversee that as well. We have an employee that does that currently. So I oversee what they're doing. But they're pretty self-sustaining for the most part. So
that's good.
Just make sure everything is working smoothly for that.
Wow. All right. So you guys are both busy folks. It's a lot of work getting done in solid waste division.
We'd have Keola on too, but he's too busy.
Yeah, he's out there.
He's working right now.
He's out there fighting the good fight. So what's a typical day look like for you as recycling coordinator?
Well, I sit in front of a computer a lot, but I also and again, that has to do with the administrative parts. There's always also lots of emails and phone calls because we get people that have questions a lot. So it could be like e-waste program, which we didn't mention. That e-waste goes to Puhi Metals. They manage that program for us as well. But it could also be things as far as just trash can repair, or, hey, why didn't my garbage get picked up? So there's that aspect, the customer service portion of the program. We're just working with my contractors when they have questions, or if we're, have like holidays coming up, which days are we going to be closed, or things of that nature. Then it's also like when contracts come due, you got to, put out requests for proposals, or, we are amending contracts. So there's that type of administrative work, and then every day down at the resource center, I'm bringing in the reuse materials and stacking that for when Goodwill comes to get it off of island. And then the batteries and the light bulbs are down there as well. And then, just general questions when people come in, they'll come in with the wrong stuff, and I try and let them know where that goes, or if we accept it at all. It's just a lot of interaction with the public down there as well, which is great. I love doing that.
Very cool. Very cool. All right.
Andy, what are the biggest challenges with this job?
Time is a big challenge. I don't want to say that it feels like we're understaffed, but it would just be helpful if we had a few more folks to help everybody. I mean, so that we don't always feel like we're playing catch up. Well, I would say some of the other issues, it says, because this question here, obstacles recycling on a small island, because those are also challenges. So that would be things like economy of scale. So most programs work on the idea that we get this much stuff and it costs this much to process it. Well, if you're a big city, you get lots and lots of stuff, so the cost to process it goes down. Well, here we don't get lots and lots of stuff because we're just a small island. And so most of the types of recycling programs, I mean, a lot of people talk about getting a material recovery facility. Well, for us to do that with the smaller amount of materials, you can downsize the facility, but it doesn't downsize the cost of that facility at the same amount.
Yeah.
You know, if we did 50% less material than a big city, downsizing it doesn't reduce the cost by 50%, and maybe reduces the cost by 10%.
Right.
So that's one issue. And all of our programs, composting, everything suffers from that economy of scale. Land costs is another major issue. So if we want to move into trying to compost, let's say food residuals, you know, add that into our composting program. Well, we have to have the land to do that. So where's that going to happen? The county doesn't have an excess of land just laying around saying, oh, here, use this. So someone that comes in to try and do that program is going to have to be able to purchase some land more than likely to make that program happen. Just the cost of getting the infrastructure built and to the island costs more too. So every aspect of the program costs more than it would on the mainland.
Right.
And yields less.
Yes,
Correct.
exactly. And the cost of doing business for these companies that we procure and contract with is very high compared to mainland costs too. So, you know, those are their challenges.
And shipping.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds rough. That's, I guess, to put it, the concept of economy of scale, which is kind of this heady, highbrow economic concept sort of for the average consumer, but to put it in consumer scale terms, that's why, like, when you buy something on Etsy, right, that one person made in their garage with their bare hands, it costs way more than if you bought a similar necklace that came from a factory that made 10 million of them in a day, because the costs don't increase. The costs increase slower than the output does.
What was the cost per ton in the proposal for the MRF, material recovery facility?
The all-in costs. Well, the cost.
But if it was a cost per ton, what would that be?
It was like $6,000 a ton.
Right. Versus on a mainland big city, you're talking maybe 120, $200 a ton. Yeah. So I mean, that's economy of scale. They have so much material that it drives the ultimate cost down because they're pushing so much material through the system.
So, which gives you this lovely catch-22 situation where you're a smaller government and a smaller municipality, so you have less money.
Right.
And the stuff you want to do costs more than it would for the richer municipality that has more money.
And same with just running all these programs. Like, we are a small municipality, like we get a small budget, but we have to run all of these programs to be able to divert all this stuff. All the separate programs Andy was talking about, you know, they can run them on Oahu where they have those economies of scale, and even just staffing them, you know, they can have many staff people and we have one staff person trying to oversee all these programs.
Yeah.
So that's difficult, right?
Which, funnily enough, is a similar thing to how it works at Hawaii, where, you know, at the public access station on Oahu maybe has like 100 or 200 people that work there and all these big budgets and stuff. And we have, I mean, you're currently looking at the entire production crew of Talkin Trash. It is
him, though, not us.
Me and Allison write the episodes.
Oh, okay. Right, this show, right. Exactly.
And then I film the episodes and edit them. And it's so we kind of suffer from, everyone in Kauai kind of suffers from the concept of economies of scale.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Sorry to be such a downer, guys. Yeah.
But in that vein, right, but something that's not a downer, what part of the work, given all those challenges and the increased difficulty of the job, what part of the work are you most proud of?
Oh, let's see. Oh, wait, that's the wrong page. Well, the things that I'm most... How do I answer that? What am I most proud of? I'm just proud that we're able to do anything at all, number one.
Yeah.
You know, because, I mean, even on the mainland, when you get into rural areas, they won't even have recycling programs. So the mere fact that we can even do recycling at all is great.
Yeah. So,
the goal is obviously to try and get more people to participate. I always try to say to people, oh, it's so hard to recycle here. You know, I have to drive it. I go, there's got to be one day during the week where you're 5 minutes away from one of these stations. So it's just, it's not impossible to do it. Just start with cardboard. You don't even have to recycle everything. Just, you know, start with something to see if you can make it work. Yeah. So my favorite part of the job is the outreach part. I love talking to people. And I always feel like when you can start planting seeds, because if you get one person, and they tell a friend, and they sort of that concept. So, but I'm also proud of my coworkers, because man, we are all just kicking butt trying to get this stuff done, and it's not an easy task, and some of it's very complicated. So, so those are some of the things I'm definitely proud of.
Well, I mean, I'm proud to be like involved in that in any way. It's really cool to see that going on, because like I said, working at Hoike, I know how it is, where you have this really hard thing and this really small team of people to do it, and you just rise to the occasion. It makes you feel great. Yeah. And I'm glad to hear you say a lot of the stuff you just said, because actually, if you watch the previous episode of Talkin Trash, that is kind of what it's all about. Is that how you can develop a system at home that makes it so that recycling is really not all that inconvenient. And a lot of it is, if you front load your investment, if you have a sorting system, then it becomes really easy, because you're always near. I mean, we're right next to Target in the middle of the commercial district in Lihue. Everyone is near here at some point, if you live on Kauai. So, and there are sites on every side of the island. And so if you just sort your stuff ahead of time, it can be really easy. And I've always been impressed with, I've lived in a lot of different places around the U.S., and I've always been impressed with how Kauai specifically balances the natural difficulty of having this small scale and dispersed kind of rural community with making it still convenient to recycle things. Because when I used to live in Kodiak, Alaska, and it was like, you just got to drive all the way out 2 hours to the end of the road and go and to the dump, or don't recycle. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, I guess my aluminum cans are going in the garbage, because I can't drive 2 hours once a week, Right. Whereas here, it's like, oh, this is... Right. We drove over here from my office. It took us 5 minutes.
So there's a drop-off at the Kekaha landfill. There's one in Waimea. There's one at near the Hanapepe transfer station. There's one down in Poipu by Brennick's. Mm-hmm. Then we have this one. Oh, there's one in Levi by the 7-Eleven. And then we have the one here by Target. There's the one in Kapa near the traffic circle up there. Mm-hmm. And then we have up in the Hanalei transfer station.
Technically in Princeville. So he covered them all.
They're all over, yeah.
So we want to share some information about plastic recycling, because it can be a little complicated, and in the past we did have to change our program rules because China stopped accepting plastic, so we have to do alternative markets for it, and that was back in 2017, I believe. It was a while back, and so what we do now is we only accept plastic number 1 and number 2 bottles and jars. And so, Andy, I want to talk to you about this. Like, we have some examples here, right? Sure. So here we go. These are examples of things that can be recycled. And see, it's a bottle. It has a neck. And so this is a number 1 plastic.
No, that's a number 2.
That's what I meant. I meant to say number 2. Excuse me. And this is a number 1 here. And these are traditionally like soda bottles too, or number 1s, right, Andy? And those you can get the high
water bottles.
Yeah, water bottles. You can get the high 5 redemption for those as well, but they're also recyclable in these bins. Go ahead, Andy. You talk about that one.
Well, this is a milk jug, obviously. And this is a number 2 as well. And again, screw top lid. It's a bottle, so we can recycle that. I find that most people, when they have issues with recycling plastic, and I don't get mad at people, because plastic is the most confusing thing to recycle, period, end of subject. They'll say, well, this bottle has, this has a 1 on it.
So does this.
And this has a 1 on it. And this has a 1 on it, so why can't I recycle them together? I'm going to try and give you the Reader's Digest version of this. The numbering system is designed originally before recycling was even happening. And it talks about the base chemicals in each of these different bottles. So for peat, it's polyethylene. So that number 1 is, sometimes you'll see it'll say PET on the bottom, and that's for polyethylene. This is also polyethylene, but each of these have different qualities. So in this bottle has other chemicals in it to give it the qualities it has, and this one has other chemicals in it to give it its qualities, and therefore, because of those difference in the chemicals, they can't be recycled together. So I'm going to show you another example of that. Even though we accept both of these for recycling, At some point, these have to get separated because you can see this one's white and solid. This one is sort of opaque and is, got this, sort of whitish color. But ultimately, even though we're recycling these together, somewhere along the line, these have to get separated because this has different chemicals that give it the color and the components that it has versus the components that this has. So that's why recycling plastic is really difficult. The final part of plastic that's really important is a lot of plastics, in theory, all plastics are recyclable, but unfortunately, there's only super competitive markets for the number one, for these, and for these. So that's why ultimately we decided to only recycle these items because we know that when we send them out, they're going to get recycled. If we send out stuff that has the other materials in it, they'll pick through those bales, take out this stuff, and then this stuff gets trashed. And when it's going to developing countries, a lot of those countries don't have, regulatory standards for their solid waste, so it just ends up in the environment. People talk about the garbage patches all the time, and most of that plastic that's in there that's not from fishing boats is from developed countries, because the developed countries, the EU, Canada, the United States, we all send our plastics to these developing countries. And so when it's coming out their rivers, it's mostly our plastics that's making that Pacific garbage patch or all the other garbage patches that are out there. So if I was to recommend anything regarding plastic, try to avoid it whenever possible. If you can buy something in a can or a glass bottle, please do, because those are both recyclable and, they're infinitely recyclable too. Plastic can be recycled once or twice, and eventually it's going to end up in the landfill or the environment, where glass and metals can be recycled infinitely. So these are really important things to remember when you're recycling plastic.
Yeah, and then so this is, we call it a plastic tray as opposed to a bottle or jar. And so just avoid these trays if you can, and don't throw them in the recycling bin if you do use them. So as we mentioned, we have 8 different locations for the Kauai Recycles programs. We have these bins here that have all these different places where you can recycle different materials. We have the bins that are collecting the materials that Andy talked about. And what I would like to do is encourage people to start a new habit. Some people say they're recycling and they're just doing aluminum cans. But there's so many things you can recycle. And one item that's really getting a lot of use these days and probably is being disposed of is cardboard, because we're shipping items in and, we have to recycle that cardboard. And so at all the Kauai Recycles drop sites, we do have cardboard recycling. Some of them that are more heavily used have multiple cardboard bins. Here today, there's 3 bins where we are for cardboard. And so I encourage people to flatten their cardboard, bring it to the Kauai Recycles, start that habit, and then tell your friends and family to do so as well.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Andy, this is something we talk about all the time, is like, how does recycling help to extend the life of our landfill?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, the first thing I want to say is, we're on an island. There's only so much space we have. And so, the landfill that we're currently using is almost to capacity. So this is really a critical issue. And recycling, not just the items we're talking about here at this drop site, but we're talking about the green waste and the metals, all the programs we were talking about earlier, all those items that we don't put in the landfill extend the life of that landfill, and we need that life. I
think we gotta pause. I think this guy's gonna come and grab.
So the main thing to remember then is that, our landfill is getting full. So anything we can do as citizens of this island to reduce the amount of material that goes in there is critical. So that's why we have these programs. We have the recycling program, the green waste program, even e-waste. We've got all the different scrap metal that we accept. Oil, not only is oil keeping it out of the landfill, but that's a major pollutant if it went into the landfill. So we want to make sure we're keeping items like that out of the landfill. So we really ask that you do your best to try and participate in all these diversion programs. We're at about 43 to 45% diversion rate at our landfill, which is really quite good. And the county's going to continue to try and work towards improving that number by implementing new programs or expanding the ones we have.
Thanks, Andy.
You're welcome.
So if you could give one piece of advice to people out there, what would it be?
My piece of advice would be, most of us are familiar with we'll just go with the 3 R's. Some people say there's 5 R's or 6 R's. Well, we're just going to go with the 3 R's. It's reduce, reuse, recycle. Well, the most important is the reduce. Reduce means that you're just not buying the garbage in the first place. So for instance, I can go to Costco or the grocery store and do this, or I could go to a farmer's market and just buy lettuce that was grown here and doesn't come in a plastic bag because I can bring my own bags to the farmer's market. So, that's one great example of reduce. The main thing we need to think about is, regardless of how you're raised, most of us are raised in this consumer society, and we're not just immediately taught when we're born to, oh, look, you should use a can instead of plastic. It's just like we go to the store, we buy the stuff, and we're not taught to really think about the consequences of those actions. Well, if we think in terms of reduce, that's where that comes into play. So again, if I can buy a soda in a can or a bottle versus a plastic bottle, both of those options are better. And I know I talked about that earlier, but I want to make sure that people don't feel like, hey, it's not necessarily your fault that you're not aware of this whole recycling thing or reducing thing. It's just our society has been created for us not to think about those things. So just thinking about it is the first step. And if it seems overwhelming, just start with one item. Start with cardboard, or start with, or if it's like start with your cans and bottles, and you can get your nickels back, by taking them to a redemption center. Start small, and if you're finding it's not that hard, you can just add another item and look at some of the other programs and just slowly start figuring out, A, how to take advantage of those programs, and then B, as you start doing that, when you're in the store, just like, oh, well, if I buy it in this, I can recycle that, but I can't recycle that. So think about that whole process when you're buying items. That's really helpful to help reduce the amount of strain on our landfill and taking advantage of our diversion programs.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
And is there anything that we haven't asked you yet that you wish we had? Is there anything you want to say that we haven't asked you a question about?
Not that I can think of. I just, the main thing is that we're mindful. These things just don't happen on their own. People, I always like to say, sustainability isn't that person's job, it's everybody's job. We all have a part to play. And so the sooner we can realize that and start participating, the better it's going to be for for the people on this island, the environment on this island, the atmosphere of our island. All those things are impacted by the choices we make every day. And so if we're mindful of those choices, we can start slowly moving towards making better choices that don't impact our environment.
Yeah, I agree. And we all generate waste of one kind or another, or really of all kinds. We all buy stuff on Amazon. We all drink drinks that come in aluminum or glass containers, hopefully mostly those, but plastic too. And it's pretty easy for each person to take care of their own stuff. And it's a huge pain for one person to take care of everybody's stuff, Like if I just take care of my stuff, that's one person's stuff that I'm sorting. And that's easy.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's a nice wild sound there.
The sound of recycling. Yeah.
Did you guys practice that? That was perfect.
Yeah.
And then Well, that's our show. Andy, thank you so much for coming on the show with us. And Allison, great to have you back.
Oh, thank you. Nice to be here.
And you're welcome, and my pleasure.
And it's I'm glad we got to do another episode outdoors. It is a little too nice, almost a little hotter than I thought it was going to be, but it's still good to get out of the office. So,
So tune in next time where we'll be talking more trash. Aloha.
Aloha.
This is how difficult it is to recycle.
Allegra Gaines is Ho'ike's president and CEO, while Leko Sameta is the administrative assistant. Smita Narong handles production and education services. Max Richardson also handles production, but IT services as well. Trisha Allen is Ho'ike's news and events producer, and Olivia Franco is our county producer and social media manager.